A lady standing on top of a moon, surrounded by angels in a mystical, otherworldly atmosphere and 12 stars above her head. It may not surprise me that most people would not immediately understand that this painting from 1627 by Guido Reni refers to the Immaculate Conception, an important theological concept and one of the 4 Catholic dogmas associated with the Virgin Mary. In short, it means that Mary, the future mother of Jesus, was born and lived without any sin, allowing her to give birth to Jesus and not pass on her sins to him through birth. The concept of the Immaculate Conception is a fairly abstract one, and it was not immediately clear to artists how to capture this idea in a painting. When it's about the Annunciation of the birth of Jesus, it's properly described in the Bible. But the Immaculate Conception is not directly described at all. The Sinless Mary was particularly popular in Spain, and many paintings in this video show scenes from 17th century Spanish Baroque artists. And the question for them was how to capture the abstract idea of the Immaculate Conception on the canvas in such a way that it becomes clear to common people who enter a church. The first step is to capture Mary. For example, Bartolomé Esteban Murillo painted her dressed in a white robe with a blue mantle and her hands crossed on her chest. Pretty conventional elements to recognize her. But she is standing on a crescent moon and is surrounded by many little angels and clouds. And why is she floating somewhere above Earth? This is not her ascension. Well, to understand these paintings, it is helpful to first learn a bit more about the birth of Mary and the idea of the Immaculate Conception. Let me explain the concept of the Immaculate Conception and why it is important to some branches of the Church, while showing you various depictions of this topic from art history. Most Christian people would agree that Jesus is without any sins, as he is the Son of God. But at the same time, he is the Son of Mary, and there is also a widely shared belief that when someone on earth is born, he or she is born with so-called original sin. That applies to everyone since the fall of man, when Adam and Eve were ejected from paradise. It's like a disease that every baby inherits. Everyone, that is, except Jesus. But that is only possible if his mother Mary is free of any sin, so people have tried to explain how Mary is free of sin. Already in the 16th century, at the influential Council of Trent, it was agreed that Mary was free of so-called personal sin. So while she was born with the original sin as her parents were sinners, she did not commit additional sins during her life. It would take another 300 years before the Catholic Church officially accepted that Mary was actually born without original sin. And to make sense of that, we need to dive into the story of the birth of Mary. The Bible is silent about the birth of Mary, and her parents are not even mentioned. But there are some apocryphal sources that identify them as Joachim and Anne. Information about the birth of Mary comes mainly from the apocryphal Gospel of James, written in the 2nd century, which mentions that the wealthy Joachim and Anne were infertile, but they prayed hard to get a baby anyway. Ultimately, God made Anne pregnant, but the Gospel does not mention how, and that has inspired some artists to capture that scene. The idea is that if Joachim and Anne had intercourse to get pregnant, Mary would have been born with original sin. So instead, some people suggested that Anne became pregnant without intercourse, for example just by embracing her husband or by a kiss on the cheek, a scene that was captured in the 14th and 15th centuries by artists and is known as Joachim and Anne meeting at the Golden Gate, with the parents of Mary usually in the center of the painting. Another theory suggested is that they did have intercourse, but without any elements of lust, such that it was pure and the original sin was not passed on. There have even been wars based on these discussions, and the various branches of the Christian Church don't agree on the whole subject of the Immaculate Conception. Fact is, however, that the idea of the Immaculate Conception and the explanation of how this was possible have influenced many artists over time. The challenge for them, however, was how to capture the abstract idea of the Immaculate Conception in a way that common people would understand it. A common element in scenes of the Immaculate Conception is a moon on which Mary is standing, as well as the presence of the sun and 12 stars surrounding her head. These elements are inspired by what is written about Mary in chapter 12 of the book of Revelations, and I quote, "And then a great wonder appeared in heaven. There was a woman who was clothed with the sun, and the moon was under her feet. She had a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out with pain because she was about to give birth." Sometimes the full moon is shown, but many times a crescent moon, something that is not mentioned in the book of Revelations, but a crescent moon is a traditional symbol for chastity, a character trait of Mary. The sun is sometimes present in a more subtle way, or even by just including the sunlight. For example, the background in this work from 1618 by Diego Velázquez shows the sun behind Mary breaking through the clouds. The 12 stars around her head refer to the 12 tribes of Israel, and these stars either serve as a halo for the Virgin or as a crown. In some cases, the 12 stars are directly replaced by a crown, and the crown is a reference to Mary as the Queen of Heaven. Another element that you may see in scenes of the Immaculate Conception is the snake or serpent, referring to the animal that seduced Adam and Eve to sin in paradise. Adam and Eve were directly created by God, and they were born without original sin. Mary is often seen as the new Eve, and in this painting by Tiepolo, you can see how she vindicates the sin of Eve by trampling on the serpent holding an apple in its mouth. You can also see a young Mary stepping on the snake in this 17th century Spanish painting. But unlike the more symbolic paintings, this painter has decided to replace the symbolic items by more direct items, like the presence of Mary's parents at the bottom, a scene of the original sin below her feet, and the presence of the Holy Trinity. And you may have noticed that the Holy Trinity, Jesus, the white dove representing the Holy Spirit, and God, are often present in these paintings, and they clearly signal to the viewer that the scene takes place in a heavenly sphere, just as the presence of angels signifies the divine protection she receives. Returning to Tiepolo's work, we can see a mirror, which is a symbol that she is unstained, and thus without sin. The mirror is also visible in this work from 1682 by Matthäus Zehender and in many other paintings. One thing that I will not discuss in detail here are the various flowers present in paintings on the Immaculate Conception. For example, in this work by Juan de Valdés Leal from 1682, you can see that the small angels carry roses, lilies, a wheat spear, an olive branch, and a palm leaf, all of which are typical symbolical items associated with the Virgin Mary. If interested in the symbology of flowers in art history, I can recommend some earlier videos I made on this channel specifically discussing floral symbolism. Well, I hope you enjoyed this discussion on the concept of the Immaculate Conception and how it is captured across art history. There's much more to say about this concept from a theological point of view, but that was not my purpose here. I'm curious to hear which, if any, of the paintings on this subject you enjoy most. Let me know in the comment section down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.